and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome to The Debate. Today, we are wading into the absolute wreckage left behind on January 18th in Ambridge. And I don't just mean the physical wreckage, although, George Grundy is certainly still recovering. I'm talking about the moral debris field created by the people who love him.
And the people who love the suspected attackers. It's a masterclass in how to make a bad situation exponentially worse. We're watching characters make these unilateral decisions to sort of curate reality for their loved ones. And honestly, it's terrifying to watch.
It is messy, I grant you that. But the central tension we're unpacking today is this conflict between objective truth, the cold hard facts, and that desperate, messy human instinct to protect family. The question is destroying the truth ever a valid act of love? Or is it, as you might suggest, just a deeper form of betrayal?
And I think we're going to find ourselves miles apart on this, because where you see protection, I see a catastrophic failure of faith.
Well, let's get right into it. I'm taking the position that Fallon and Amber are acting rationally. Given the extreme pressure they are under. They are responding to complex trauma with a primary goal of safeguarding stability.
And I'll be arguing that these so-called protective acts are actually acts of supreme arrogance. Both Fallon and Amber have decided they know what's best, and they've stripped the men in their lives of their agency. They're building futures on quicksand.
Okay, so let's start with the position statements. Let me lay out why I see this as a rescue mission, not a crime.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
You have to look at the context. Fallon isn't operating in a vacuum here. She is watching her husband, Harrison, absolutely spiral. He's been volatile, he's received formal warnings at work, and she knows he has a history of losing his temper, specifically regarding George. So when she sees that CCTV footage, a man walking fast, wine bottle in hand, at the exact time of the assault, she's not sitting in a courtroom. She's in full-on panic mode. It's damage control, a reflex really. She believed she was preventing a simple misunderstanding that would ruin his life. To me, that's loyalty. And with Amber, the stakes are arguably even higher because now there's a child involved. She's pregnant, she has a vulnerable partner in George, who is recovering from a brain injury. Her decision to suppress her feelings for Brad, it isn't a malicious lie. It's a utilitarian choice. She is prioritizing the needs of the child and the invalid over her own romantic happiness. That's maturity.
See, I look at the exact same facts and I see a foundational collapse of trust. Let's start with Fallon. By deleting that CCTV footage, she didn't just hide evidence, she convicted her husband in her own mind. She looked at a grainy image and said, yep, that's him. Harrison did this. She didn't ask him, she didn't trust him. And the devastating irony, of course, is that Harrison was innocent. He was in the pub. So her protection has actually manufactured a crime where there wasn't one before. She hasn't shielded him, she's imperiled him.
You're using hindsight, though. She didn't know he was in the pub at that moment.
But she should have had enough faith to ask. And as for Amber building a marriage on I owe you is a disaster waiting to happen. Staying with George out of pity isn't noble, it's just sustainable deceit. She's robbing George of the chance to be with someone who actually chooses him, not someone who views him as an obligation.
Okay, let's move to the core debate and really dissect that confrontation between Fallon and Harrison, because that scene, it was heavy.
Heavy is putting it mildly. Harrison comes home and he's just desperate for normalcy. He literally says he wanted a nice dinner.
Which breaks your heart a little. He wanted a sanctuary, and instead he walks straight into a confession. But notice why she confesses. It's not because she feels guilty about the law. She does it because Harrison senses the distance between them. She cracks under the pressure of his confusion.
But look at the evidence she relied on. She admits it. There was a man walking fast across the car park with a bottle of wine. And Harrison, that man was you. She was so certain.
Because visually it was compelling. We have to acknowledge that human perception is flawed, especially when adrenaline is involved. Fallon isn't a villain. She's a terrified wife. She sees a figure that matches her husband's description, acting in a way that aligns with her fears, and she interprets that data instantly. She thinks she's stopping a train wreck.
But that is exactly the problem. She destroyed evidence of the actual potential attacker, or at least a key witness. Harrison reveals he was still in the pub. That means the man on the hard drive was either the real deal or someone who saw what happened. And by acting as judge, jury, and executioner of that evidence, she has potentially let the real culprit go free. Harrison nails it when he says, "I just can't get over how little faith you have in me." That is the wound. It isn't just legal, it's relational.
I see why you think that, but you're ignoring the psychological state she was in. This brings us to our second point, his volatility. Fallon didn't just pull the suspicion out of thin air.
But Harrison has been working on himself. He claims he's been different for months.
Has he, though? Fallon cites his anger on New Year's Eve. She specifically mentions he's been volatile lately. She knows he's on the edge. When you live with someone who has been spiraling, even if they are trying to recover, you become hypervigilant. You see patterns everywhere. So Fallon's interpretation of that footage wasn't malicious. It was a logical deduction based on Harrison's recent trajectory.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. What you're describing sounds like textbook confirmation bias. She was so afraid that he was capable of that violence that she processed the visual information to confirm that fear. She saw what she was terrified of, not what was actually there. And when Harrison asks for, "Do you think I've been different?" she hesitates. That hesitation speaks volumes. She doesn't truly believe in his redemption.
Buried him is a bit dramatic. She was trying to dig him out. But I will concede that the outcome is, well, it's legally complicated, which leads us to the consequences.
It's not just complicated, it's a catastrophe. I mean, we need to be very clear about the legal stakes here, because Harrison certainly was.
He points out she committed a criminal offense.
Specifically, perverting the course of justice. This isn't a parking ticket. This carries a custodial sentence, jail time. Harrison is a police officer. He's already on a final warning at work, so look at the trap she has built for him.
It's a double bind.
It's worse than that. Harrison has a duty to report a crime. If he reports Fallon, his wife goes to prison. If he hides it, which he seems to be doing, he becomes an accessory after the fact. If this comes out, he is fired immediately, loses his pension, and likely faces prosecution himself. Fallon's attempt to save his career has actually ensured that the only way to keep his career is to become a corrupt cop.
And this is where I feel the most sympathy for them. It's a tragic situation where the system, the police force, the law, it just can't accommodate the nuance of spousal love. The advocate in me sees this as a sacrifice. She was willing to take a criminal risk for him.
She put him in the line of fire without his consent. That's the key. If I choose to jump in front of a bus for you, that's noble. If I decide to hide the fact that you might have hit someone with a bus, I'm making you a criminal. He tells her, technically, I should report you. He knows the line has been crossed.
Introducing the Archer's mug, where elegance meets everyday comfort. Crafted from premium white ceramic, designed with vibrant peekaboo colors inside, simple, modern, and stylish. Start your day the Archer's way, with warmth, familiarity, and the comfort of voices you've come to love. As the stories unfold on the Archers, let this mug become part of your daily ritual, a small reminder of life in Ambridge. Practical for every home, dishwasher and microwave safe. Available in 2 sizes, 11 ounces and 15 ounces, designed to fit your lifestyle. Enjoy your favorite drink in a mug that connects you to Britain's most beloved countryside story, The Archers. For more information and to order your very own The Archers mug, follow the link below and make it part of your daily routine.
This proves that this kind of protective deception is toxic. It forces the innocent party to become an accomplice to their own rescue.
That's a compelling argument. I can't argue with the legal reality. But let's pivot to the parallel story, because I think the emotional stakes are just as high there, even if jail isn't on the table. Amber and Brad.
It's the same dynamic. Unilateral decisions to curate reality.
We have that scene by the ice cream freezer. It's incredibly tender. Brad finally says it, "I'm in love with you." And Amber admits she feels the same.
And then drops the hammer, the pregnancy.
She says, "That changes everything." And I would argue she is right. My position here is that the pregnancy introduces a higher hierarchy of need. This isn't just about Amber's romantic happiness anymore. It's about stability for a child. It's about George, who is currently vulnerable. Amber deciding to stay with George, despite her feelings for Brad, is an act of duty.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. She isn't staying with George out of love. She's staying out of pity and obligation. She literally says, I owe it to him. You cannot build a healthy family on a debt ledger. It is so unfair to George. Does he deserve a partner who is secretly in love with his cousin? A partner who views being with him as a penance for a betrayal kiss?
But is it penance or is it commitment? We often confuse love with just the spark of romance. Amber is choosing the action of love, staying, supporting, raising the child, over the feeling of love she has for Brad. That is a valid, ethical choice.
It's sustainable deceit. Just like Fallon deleted in the footage, Amber is deleting her own truth to create a palatable reality for George. She thinks she's protecting him from heartbreak, but she's actually denying him the agency to be with someone who chooses him fully. And let's not forget the guilt. They talk about the betrayal of that kiss while George lay in the cold. That guilt is driving the bus, not logic.
Guilt can be a powerful moral compass, though.
Or it can be blinding, just like Fallon's fear blinded her.
I want to zoom out a bit to the broader atmosphere in Ambridge, because this theme of ignoring uncomfortable truths is everywhere. We heard Susan talking about Uncle Clive.
Ah, yes. Clive the poison.
Susan calls him toxic because he suggested a local was responsible for the attack. She's adamant. No one in Ambridge would do that.
Which is hilarious considering we just spent 10 minutes discussing how Fallon, a local, destroyed evidence, and Harrison, a local, was suspected by his own wife.
But Susan's instinct is to protect community cohesion. She rejects Clive's toxicity to keep the peace. It's the macro version of what Fallon did. She wants to believe the best of her neighbors.
But Clive was closer to the truth. That's the bitter pill here. Susan calls him poison, but he was actually the diagnostic tool. He sensed the darkness that Susan refuses to look at. By silencing Clive, by calling him toxic and driving him away, they aren't removing the poison. They're just swallowing it. It's willful blindness.
Okay, let's move to our conclusions, because I think we've really illuminated the core tension here. What's your final take on the ethics of ambush this week?
My conclusion is that this episode shows that truth cannot be managed, curated, or deleted. Fallon's deleted footage didn't save Harrison. It trapped him in a legal nightmare. Amber's hidden love won't save George. It will eventually humiliate him when the truth surfaces. These protective acts are time bombs, not shields. By trying to control the narrative, they've endangered everyone's future. It proves that real love requires the courage to face reality, not the kindness of obscuring it.
I see why you think that, but I have to offer a different perspective. Looking at the events of January 18th, I see two women, Fallon and Amber, who were faced with impossible choices. The outcomes were messy, yes. I grant you that Fallon has created a disaster, but their motivations were rooted in a deep love and this desire to shield vulnerable men from harm. They acted as buffers against the harsh reality. In a world that is often cruel and random, like the attack on George, the instinct to create a safe harbor, even if it's built on a secret, is an act of compassion.
Compassion that destroys agency isn't compassion. It's control.
It leaves us with a haunting question, one that Harrison essentially posed at that dinner table. Is it better to be protected by a comforting lie, the nice dinner, or exposed to a dangerous, potentially life-altering truth?
I think we know my answer. I'd take the beans on toast and the cold, hard truth any day.
And I think there's something to be said for the person willing to cook the dinner and hide the burnt bits, just so you can have one night of peace.
We will have to leave it there.
Indeed, this has been a fascinating dissection of the ethics of Ambridge. Thanks for listening to The Debate.
Thank you.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around.
So, what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
and- kind of. Yep. That's,
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
yep. That's the ball bar. That's,
This one.
yep. That's.
Hayley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline. I mean,
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever